the really short version is 56 doctors, 12 countries around the world looking for help, and traveled to 3 continents looking for help. And the list of symptoms was just growing and growing and growing, and to where doctors would see me and say, well, who all is this? I was like, no, that's just me.
You were way too thin for a while.
Person. Yeah, I was a size 1 junior. I could not shop in the women's department anymore. I remember that time we went shopping. Everything I tried. You know, like, look, I'm Sicilian and Lebanese. Okay, people, we love to eat. And there is, I don't think anyone for any generation in any history of my family has ever said I'm too thin. So it was very strange, and my mother thought I was bulimic, my sister thought I was anorexic, so they were following me around because every time I ate I would get sick and I couldn't keep it down and I had horrible reactions. And so the symptoms just went on and on. I had neurological disorders. I saw every doctor you could imagine, just about everywhere, and you know, like you said, I was at a point where I just knew there was just literally nowhere else in the world to go. And Mark and I met in a very interesting way, which you can explain another time. But yes, it was actually a mistake because I thought I knew Mark, but I didn't know Mark. But there we were having coffee. You know,
we sit down and she goes, "So what do you want?"
I did. I did. At that point, I was just like, look, okay, I must be honest. I said, okay, look, I have something going on in my life, and I made a deal with God, and I said, whatever you want from me, I will do it. That, you know, like I was on my knees that morning, I was praying, I was like, whatever you want, I'll do it. So I'm sitting in front of him, and when he starts talking about this ministry.
This was in a restaurant, okay?
Right. We're at First Watch, because I even told Scott, I was like, okay, look, I'm in a quandary because I thought I knew who this guy was, and I said I would go have a coffee, meet him for coffee. I have no clue who this guy is. But it's a public place, so it can't be, it's gotta be okay, right? Scott's like, you want me to go? I'm like, it's First Watch. I go there all the time, they know me. If anything's funky, they'll come to my rescue, you know? So we went, right? So I'm sitting there, and I was just like, look, whatever you want, I'm a yes. I don't know, you want a donation? Do you need somebody to volunteer? Like, what do you need, you know? And he said, well, what if I'm not here to ask you for something? What if there's something you need? And I wasn't there thinking of me, right? Because for me, I had already been everywhere, and there was nowhere else to go. There's nowhere to ask. So I wasn't there to ask for anything. And truthfully, if I tell the truth, we went through some stuff, right? Trying to, my belief was not quite there, and a lot of that comes from having chronic pain and having 56 specialists and internists and just like you name it, telling you, you know, again, we see there's a problem, we see you're getting worse, we see it's not helping, but we don't know how to help you, there's nothing to do.
So tell them about the healing seminar and the pork sandwich.
Oh, you want to hear that part?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he wrangles me in via Scott to Andrew Womack, whose voice I couldn't even stand. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't stand this anymore. And I couldn't stand his voice, and I just would tell Scott, like, listen with your headphones, please, I can't take it. And he kept inviting me to go, and I kept saying no, I wasn't going. You know, I was like, look, I'm Catholic, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. We're not into the, you know, be healed on the ground kind of stuff. That's not me. You go ahead and do that. But here's what it came down to, guys. What it came down to is that we were at the worst point we ever had been in our relationship. We just celebrated 16 years, actually.
And Scott had a miracle healing as well.
Yeah, Scott had a miracle healing there as well. But the only reason I said yes, we were at a really bad point, and I was at the point where I looked at him. The last 3 doctors I saw, including the one in Vietnam, they basically literally said, there's nothing more we can do, it's just a matter of time, and they sent me home to die. And that was it. And so he kept asking me to go, and I'm in my office, and I kept saying no, and I kept saying no, and I finally was in my office, and it occurred to me, like, I might not have any more birthdays to spend with him. It was his birthday weekend, because he was in the other room. He's like, well, I'm going to go, I'm going to climb Pikes, or not climb, I'm going to drive up Pikes Peak for my birthday, and spend the weekend, and I was like, I'll go. And he's like, really? And I'm like, sure, I'll go. And in my office, I'm going, why did I say yes? And so in the car, he wanted to drive. I hate to drive. I like to fly. He likes to drive. So we're driving, and I'm dreading this, you guys. And he's like, well, when you get there, and I'm thinking, oh my God, 4 days of listening to this man's voice, this Andrew Womack guy, I can't do it. And I said, literally, you guys, I was like, this is the truth. I said, I'll sit in the Airbnb and I'll do my work, you go to the thing, and then we'll do Pikes Peak together. And we have other training in our lives, and I've done a lot of leadership training, other training, and so he said, well, you know that you never know what you're going to get when you're in the room. Again, I went because it was his birthday weekend, and literally, you guys, like, I will tell you the truth, like, I woke up one morning and told him, this was months before we had gone there, and I said, look, this is not getting any better. I can feel it. Like, I could just feel the life draining out of me. And I wasn't scared or morbid. I was not telling my family. My family had no clue how bad it was. And I said to him, I'm going to put things on paper so that when the time comes, I'm not putting my family through that planning process. So I wrote my funeral. And I wrote out my instructions because, again, I'm Catholic. And my sister kept saying, you're not going to be cremated. That's our religion. Like, just in general conversations, we would laugh about it. I'm like writing it down, like, I will be cremated, and I want this song, not the other songs. And so anyway, as I'm there, I'm just thinking like this could be the last one, right? So I was like, okay, fine, I'll go. So we go, and I'll be honest, guys, like for days, I just kept sitting there going, what is, like, I don't get it. I literally kept saying, I don't get it. I don't get it, because I've read this. We've talked about this. I've read these devotionals. I've heard by his stripes I am healed. I get it. And I'm still not okay. And every day I was in pain. And I had brought my own food because I was allergic. I could not have sugar. I couldn't have gluten. I couldn't have dairy. I couldn't have, it was like a list, right? I couldn't eat. And no matter what I ate, my body could not process fats, carbs, or proteins, and I couldn't absorb nutrients. So as a woman who could normally speak 5 languages, I sometimes couldn't. I'd be on stage because I would speak for a living, and I couldn't think of the word for chair. And as Mark said, like I was a size 1 junior, and I was afraid. I was embarrassed. Not afraid, but I was embarrassed to go out. I just looked horrible, I just was gaunt, and it wasn't sexy. It just wasn't, So here we were, and I brought my own food. I thought, okay, I'll eat my own food. I'm not gonna, there's a disclaimer. We do not accommodate allergies because we believe in healing. I was like, yeah, okay, we're stopping at the grocery store before we go to this thing, so I can have that's the truth, right? I was like, we gotta have my own food because I'm not gonna deal with that problem on top of everything else, And so I did get the food, and there was a point at which I had gone to Vietnam, was my last stop, and it was the last place where they literally told my friend that they would give me the medicine that I was demanding because I threw a fit at the hospital after 3 weeks of being there.
So what happened at the conference?
And so I sat there and I had hurt my shoulder.
Okay.
On the plane right back. And that morning, Scott helped me fix my zipper. And we were talking about the fact that I couldn't move my arm past here. I still couldn't sleep on this side. I couldn't move my arm at all. And I'm sitting there, and this was probably on day 2 after me, day three, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I was just talking about this on the way before we came here today. And I said, do you remember that moment? I did, and I said, I was sitting like this, and Randy Clark was preaching, and he was calling out, he called out shoulder or something, and all of a sudden it occurred to me, I was like, what's that? Shoulder? Like, yeah, okay, there's like 1,500 people here. And all of a sudden I'm like,
I'm healed.
Because the whole time we had been there, if we were standing up and, they'd say, put your arm around your neighbor to sing. And I was like, okay, I don't want to act like I don't want to touch my neighbor because that might offend my neighbor. So I would stand like this because I couldn't move. But I realized I was sitting like this. And the guy sitting next to me is like, what's going on? We met a guy there from Kansas City, and I was like, nothing. He's like, did you get healing? I'm like, no. And he's like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know. I think I can move my shoulder. He's like, well, then you got healed. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think so.
She is a tough patient. She is really tough.
I said this to Scott. I said, one of the reasons that I share so much with people is because I'm a woman that needs irrefutable evidence.
Yes, you do.
Right? And I'm logical. I work on both sides of my brain, so I'm like
at the same time.
Right. Yeah, I do. I'm right in the brain, right? So I'm like, no. And then Scott's like, what's going on? I'm like, don't you worry about it. Because he's like, why are you fidgeting? I'm like, don't you worry about it.
So what happened next?
So then what happened next? I was like, what the what? And I'm just sitting there going like, this isn't possible, right? And a faith problem in this country. We have a belief problem. And you can have your healing someday, or you can have it right now because it was already done. And it always makes me cry, first of all, because of course it's like, wow. But second of all, because in that moment, I got really angry. I was like, are you kidding me? For 10 years, nobody told me this? And I've been going through all of this, like I could have had it today. And so I was a little angry, and I was feeling really blessed, I was like, what? And so then he's talking, and I had a vision, actually, in that moment. And in my vision, I saw the face of the Lord. And the thing that was really struck me was that his face was very pained. And he pulls back this red velvet curtain, and he just looked at me and he said, child, why do you doubt me?
Wow.
And in that moment, I really honestly felt so ashamed. But here I was for 9.5 years, and I can't tell you I was cursing God. I didn't think it was God's fault, but I didn't even think to go to him. And so I was like, okay, then okay. So it was about time to go to lunch, and Scott was somewhere else, and I was talking to somebody, and he came up to me later and said, hey, I'm going to go grab the stuff out of the car and get lunch. And I said, well, you can do that, but I've already eaten. And he goes, oh, what did you eat? I was like, I just went upstairs and bought something. No, this is the pulled pork sandwiches. They were pulled pork sandwiches upstairs, and these, oh my gosh, they smelled so good. You guys, there's certain foods that I was jonesing for years. Pulled pork was one of them, okay? And this stuff was on like a challah bun, okay? I saw that, and I was like, I will have one of those. And I went down.
Which was kind of like suicide before
that
moment, yeah.
We were just talking about this. I have photos because no one believes. My sister-in-law's pregnant right now, and she's like 4.5 months, and she's barely showing, but she's like right here, right now. I looked at Scott, and I said, do you remember seeing my stomach like that? And she was like, that's not possible. No. Remember, I told you guys I hid a lot from my family, so they never even saw that. And doctors didn't believe me, so I had to take photos. And I would show them, and my stomach would blow up. Just like out to here, immediately. If I would have gluten, or if I had anything with corn, that was the other thing, corn, I would fall into a food coma for 18 to 24 hours. He'd have to carry me out of the car. And obviously I didn't eat it after I discovered that, but if I had gluten, too much sugar, things like that, I would lose my words. They tested me for ALS at times, because I couldn't talk.
So how'd it go with the pork sandwich?
Well, I ate that thing in about 72 seconds. But I do remember it was really good. So Scott said, well, what did you eat? And I was like, I ate up there. And he goes, oh, well, now to him that means like I picked through some things and found something to munch. But he looked down and there was nothing but a wrapper. And he goes, you ate the whole thing? I go, I ate the whole thing. He's like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And I said, give me 15 minutes and we'll know, because in 15 minutes, the stomach would blow up, my head would start hurting, I'd have brain fog, I couldn't think, I was in, my joints from head to toe would be in pain. And, about 15 minutes went by, and, I had this little tinge. He's like, are you okay? So he kept checking me. I was like, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, I'm good. And then we both just started crying. I was just...
Praise God.
All I can tell you is ever since then, I have been eating. As you can see, I am not a size 1 junior. I'm not even, I got a whole wardrobe downstairs that, I can't put my left leg in right now, but that's all right, because, God is good.
God is good.
And I love to eat, and there's pretzel buns, you guys. Well, all that time, who knew they invented pretzel buns? I love pretzels. I was like, what? Give me a pulled pork on a pretzel bun. This is so great. So, I've been eating ever since. I tell my story, I love it. Scott and I have really dug into the Word. I actually can tolerate Andrew Womack's voice now. Went back for another year. I think it's gotten deeper. I don't know. But we're also, and like you said, there was a time when, not long after that, when the enemy just struck me from head to toe, we got back and I couldn't get out of bed. It took me probably 5 times. I could not get out of bed. I was in pain. Everything from my head to my toe, every single joint. And I got a little nervous, and I said to him, I need your help. I need you to pray with me over this. And when he woke up, I said, I can't. I've tried to get out of this bed and I can't. And so he prays over me and he goes, now get up and do something. Because that was what made me get the pulled pork, right? Like Randy Clark always said, do something you couldn't do before. for, which for me was eat. I knew if I ate, I'd know right away if I was healed or not.
Sure.
So he says, go do something you couldn't do. And here I am, and I'm like from head to toe in pain. I get out of that bed and I was just like, is that all you got? Is that all you got? Yelling at the devil.
Now that's
right?
good. That's good. I like.
You're gonna take my
See, that's how you keep your healing.
all you got. And after about 2 minutes, he comes, he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, we're done. I'm done. I'm done with the devil. I'm done. You know. So
Praise God. Thank you. Thank you. Blessing. That was really good.